Let's begin the class. So today we will be discussing about the RBI circulars that were released by Reserve Bank of India in last month. So you will be discussing all the terms used in RBI circular during July 2020, all the master circulars and all the updates of RBI in the month of July 2020. We will be discussing it. As you all know that RBI circulars are like Bibles for bankers for banking exams. Anything and everything is covered under RBI circulars. If somebody looks into RBI circular regularly, he or she is undoubtedly going to qualify any exam. Okay, every study material is based on RBI circulars. So we will directly look into the RBI circulars. We will directly look the words used in RBI circular, because if you use the words, the terms used in RBI circular in your interview, then only you leave a very good impression in front of your interviewer. Okay. So before that, I want to communicate you that one of our friend was having an examination today. Rahul Kumar was having an examination today, written examination, and he was saying to me that some of our topics which we covered in last four 5 session was in the examination. I'm very glad for that, because this is how your hard work pays off. So I put my valuable time towards prepare towards all your preparation and preparing study materials for you. So if something appears, so some of our points discussed here in this session comes in exam, this is a very good sign that we are in a right track. Okay, so the terms we discussed in yesterday class, Basel 3, also there in this examination paper, and some of the questions regarding this RBI Act was there in his examination paper. I'm glad about that. So with that note, we will be starting our session today. So why I choose this RBI circulars for a month? Because we have to be specific. As I was speaking to some of our friends today from the morning, I was telling that the one thing that I am doing here for them is I am filtering the information. Information is nowadays freely available here and there. So if you learn all the informations that are in front of you, then you are certainly going to lose, because it's a competitive examination and your aim should be particular. Okay. So the thing which I am doing, I am filtering here, and I hope that this filtering process will help you, and rest you all are doing hard work, I believe. So let's begin with our session that is called this gist of RBI circulars for the month of July 2020, and we will also discuss the terms associated with this banking circular. Okay. So let's begin with the first slide. Says about the liquidity scheme for NBFC. The government of India approved a scheme to improve the liquidity position of NBFCs and HFCs through a special purpose vehicle. Okay. As I was discussing yesterday, liquidity for NBFCs and housing finance companies were a very big concern. Okay. So why that there was a concern regarding the liquidity? No voice. Yeah, voice from my side I believe is clear. Please check your net connection. Today my net connection is, I believe, okay. So you refresh it. Meanwhile, I am covering this liquidity scheme. So I was telling why liquidity was important for NBFC and HFC. Why there was a liquidity crunch in terms of NBFC, HFCs. This is a very, very vital question in terms of interview. Am I still not audible to you all? Am I audible now? Am I audible? Please confirm. Am I audible? Am I audible? Okay. Okay. The first circular was regarding the liquidity scheme of NBFC and HFC. Okay. As you all aware that there is a liquidity crunch in terms of NBFC and HFC in India. Why so? This is a big question. Due to this liquidity crunch, IL&FS has gone bankrupt. So please tell. I was discussing it yesterday. If someone have remembered it, can tell why there is a liquidity crunch. Right. Yes, exactly. Asset liabilities mismatch. And it is very huge in terms of HFC. HFC, housing finance companies, they lend money for 30 years. A normal housing loan in India is for 30 years. But NBFCs fund their customers through other borrowings, through borrowings from banks. Okay. They borrow money for 5 years, but they lend it for 30 years. That's why there is a asset liability mismatch. What is a housing finance company? Which company can be called as a housing finance company? Can anyone tell it? A housing finance company is a non-banking financial company which has more than 50% of its business coming from housing loan. Okay? The difference between normal NBFC and housing finance companies, any NBFC having its portfolio size of more than 50% coming from housing loan segment is called a housing finance company. Okay, and out of that 50%, 75% loan should be to individual borrowers, not to real estate. Okay, minimum 75% should be to the individual borrowers. This is a HFC. As I have earlier told you that we will be also focusing all the terms that are associated with this RBI, with all these RBI circulars. Okay. So what they say that NBFC, including in microfinance institutions registered with RBI, except core investment company, will get this benefit of extra liquidity scheme. Okay, all these companies should meet the required capital adequacy ratio, CRAR, which we discussed in our Basel III class. Okay, the minimum requirement of CRAR is 15% in terms of NBFCs and 12% for HFC. So from this circular, you got to know that the capital adequacy ratio required for NBFCs is 15% and for housing finance company is 25%. 12%. Okay, they should not have total net NPA more than 6% as on March 2019. All these are not that important, and they should have made a net profit in one of the last 2 financial years. In last 2 financial years, they have to show profit for minimum 1 year. Okay, and they should be eligible for this special purpose vehicle scheme. Okay, this liquidity scheme is launched for NBFCs and HFC through special purpose vehicle. We will be discussing what is SPV. Okay, if someone of you know SPV, he can tell it right now. Otherwise, we will be discussing it in our next slide. Okay, so SPV for NBFCs, it continues, and that SBI Capital, which is a subsidiary of State Bank of India, will be responsible for setting up a SPV, special purpose vehicle, and this special purpose vehicle will be for 3 months, and all that facility will be given up to September 30 through commercial papers and non-convertible debentures. What is a non-convertible debenture? Can anyone tell? What is a non-convertible debenture? Debenture is a debt instrument. Listen, debentures are debt instruments. Okay, when you buy a debenture, you give a loan to that particular company. Okay, you become a lender to that company. Debentures are of 2 types. A convertible debenture can be converted into general equity shares at a later date, but non-convertible debentures will always remain as a debenture. They can never be converted into equities, shares of that company. Okay, so this is non-convertible debentures. Am I clear? Debentures are normally for long terms. They are debt instruments used for long term debts. Okay, they carry certain rate of interest. And commercial paper, you all know that commercial papers issued by corporates. Okay, so what the circular says, that through a special purpose vehicle, NBFCs and HFC will get extra liquidity for a period of 3 months through commercial papers and NCDs. And now let's see what is special purpose vehicle. Special purpose vehicle is something that was responsible for this Lehman Brothers failure. Okay, we will also discuss some day how this Lehman Brothers scam has happened, all that. But now let's understand what is special purpose vehicle. It is also called special purpose entity in America, and or else special purpose corporation. An SPV is mainly formed to raise funds by collateralizing future receivables, mostly formed to raise funds from the market. What happens? Understand it. Funds by collateralizing future receivables. When I have 100 rupees as a corporate, as a NBFC, I have 100 rupees, or I have 1 crore for that matter. I have 1 crore with me, and I have lent all that 1 crore to my borrowers. Now I don't have extra money to fund my new borrowers. Okay. So what can I do? I will gather all my papers that I have borrowed to so and so. I will gather all that 1 crore of loan asset, and I will deposit it to a special corporate, saying that this is my loan portfolio. I have given 1 crore of loan to these retail investors. There are thousands of retail investors who have taken loan from me, and these are the documents. In a later period of time, in 10 years or in 5 years, I will be receiving 1.5 crore from all of them. So you please buy all these documents in 1.25 crore and give me that money. Okay, and whatever future receivables will be there, whatever amount I will be receiving in future date, that all amount will be going to you. So what I have done as a corporate, I have sold my existing portfolio. So there is a collateral to this. What is the collateral? This loan portfolio is used as a collateral. I have sold it to a third party. He has bought it at a discount rate, and whatever extra amount he will be getting as a future receivable is his profit. Am I clear now? What is a special purpose vehicle? Have all of you understood? It can be given, it can be traded in secondary market. In share markets, it can be traded. Not share market, it's in capital market. Share is a particular script. In a stock market or in a stock exchange, shares are listed, mutual funds are listed, equity traded funds, ETFs are listed. So these SPVs can also be listed. This is also called, this process is called securitization. Okay, the process is also known as securitization. And how you securitize this? You securitize this through a special purpose vehicle. A special purpose vehicle can be a corporation, can be a different company, or a trust or a fund by a separate entity. So banks normally use this to reduce their risks. Once they sell the portfolio, any unforeseen condition or any default happens in a future date is not bank's risk. Bank is not going to lose anything. This is also another method of refinance. When NBFCs or when banks fund agricultural loans as a part of their priority sector lending, whatever amount they have funded to agriculture sector as part of the priority sector lending, they go and give this portfolio to NABARD, show this portfolio to NABARD, and they immediately get refinance out of that. You have already funded 1 crore as a part of priority sector lending, take 75 lakhs at a lower interest rate, and you go refinance it again. Okay, So this is another process. This is called refinance. Securitization is you have securities with you, you have papers with you that so and so has taken a loan from you. You are selling this portfolio to somebody else. This is called securitization. You sell it at a discount rate. Guess that you will be getting a future receivables as a part of EMI. People are going to pay you 100 crores. Then you are going to sell it in 75 crores to a separate entity. And through this, you don't have any headache that whether people pay or they don't. You don't have any concern about that. Am I clear? Are you getting it? If you are thorough about SPV, yeah. No, it is not. No, it is not a no, it is not. It cannot be called as a subordinate debt. Okay, it will be sold outrightly, and out of that profit, we are going to refinance again to our customers. So this is a portfolio we are selling it. Okay, we can use this as a liquidity. Means it can be used as LCR. Once you sell it, and whatever amount you get as the sale proceeds, you can use it as liquidity coverage ratio. You can mitigate your liquidity. It is not. It is no more a debt to you. It has become a reserve for you. Okay, it is. It is a part of your profit. It is a part of your profit. Okay, so it is no more debts. Okay, so it will be used as a refinance. Once you sell it, you get it. You get that amount for refinance. You have already funded your customers out of your capital, out of your other borrowings, out of your deposits. Now you have sold it. You gained that amount. Now it is up to you where you need to invest your amount. Okay. So anybody else having any query on SPV? SPV is securitization. You make a packet of all your portfolios of a certain amount, all your housing loan portfolios or all your personal loan portfolios. You package it, you make a paper, you make a documentation that this is my portfolio. In the month of April, I have funded 1,000 crores. So I need to sell my portfolio. Out of this 1,000 crore funding, whatever future receivables I am going to get as EMI as a part of interest and principal repayment, that amount will go to you, and I want to sell this portfolio to you. Selling of a loan portfolio is called securitization, and the trust, the company, the organization that carries this process, that buys that portfolio, is called special purpose vehicle. Here vehicle means an entity, not a car. Okay, have you got it? So a parent company can make a subordinate company or a subsidiary to play with this SPV. Okay, this will mitigate their risks. Yes. Yes. If it will not be discounted, then why somebody else will buy your risk? If it is not at yeah, what are you saying? Your portfolio, and there is a voice break again. Yeah. Hmm. Hmm. Between 1 to 2 crores. If your portfolio is going to be a very risky portfolio, or then there is an uncertainty in market, and your portfolio and you and the other company thinks that the receivables may be below 1 crore, then only your portfolio price will decrease. But as long as your portfolio is playing healthy, It will be more than your more than your normal investment, normal lending amount. Okay, so it will be between 1.5 like that. Okay, so there is also another process of securitization. Either you sell it to SPV, or through a special purpose vehicle you can trade it. You can also trade it. There is no, it is not a mandate that you need to sell it to the SPV and they will take the receivables. You can also trade it. Normal retail investors can invest in that script. Okay, that will be a commercial paper like thing. They will gather all that 1 crore. You are buying it as a like they buy equity shares. You buy part of it. Mean they will roll out it in a face value of rupees 100. You will buy it. Whatever future receivables bank will get, take for example, if that 1 crore will yield 1.25 crore as a part of future receivables, then your 100 rupees investment into it will be giving you rupees 125. Okay, through this retail investors can also invest. There are two mechanisms: either you sell it directly outrightly, or you sell it to SPV and SPV will list itself to the will list that portfolio in share market, and retail investors will come in and they will invest, and whatever profit and whatever future receivables will be found, they will buy it. They will be getting it. Okay, so there is something they discussed about this master circular on self-help group bank linkage. Okay, a self-help group, I think you all of knowing about self-help group. Self-help groups are important in terms of financial inclusions are concerned. So SHGs can open bank account even if they don't have any credit facilities availed from your organizations. This is a master circular, so you need to remain updated about SHGs. Bank lending to SHGs should be included in branch credit plan, block credit plan, and district level credit plan. So as per operational guidelines issued by NABARD, SHGs may be sanctioned savings linked loans by bank. What is savings linked loan? Whatever their minimum average balance for a particular month or for a quarter, they can be given a loan up to 4 times of that average balance. Okay, this is called savings linked loans for SHGs. The banks would have the discretion to decide on the interest rate applicable to the SHGs. No loan related ad hoc service charges to be levied on loan amount up to rupees 25,000, and the loans to SHGs are considered as weaker sections in priority sector lending. In priority sector lending, there is a sub target of weaker sections, and that sub target carries 10% weightage in entire 40% priority sector lending. Out of that 40%, whatever amount constitutes for that 40%, your investments should be 10% for the weaker sections, and SHG is a part of weaker sections. Okay, so what is the 10% is of what? Can you tell me? The priority sector lending, the percentage calculated in priority sector lending is a percentage of, can you say, A and B, C, or yes, adjusted net bank credit, or off balance sheet exposure, whichever is higher. Okay, off balance sheet exposure consists this LGBC. Okay, so monitoring of SHG bank linkage program shall be the regular agenda of discussion in state level bankers committee and in DCC. So there is something called master circular on agency commission. Normally government of India pays no commission for government banking to banks, but there are some sections, some service where RBI is going to pay commission to banks. Here they are revenue receipts and payments on behalf of central and state governments. These are not so important, so you can check it in our PDF material. Transaction relating to the following government business don't carry a commission: short-term or long-term borrowings by state governments, furnishing of bank guarantee or security deposits to government contractors or suppliers. These are the list, and this whatever transaction you made through this gold monetization scheme 2015 don't carry any agency commission. Why banks are given agency commissions? That because banks play a greater role in terms of financial intermediary between government and public. Okay, the main role nowadays is the intermediary service. Most of the public sector banks do intermediary services between public and the government. Master circular on impounding counterfeit notes. This is something that is very important. The counterfeit notes can be impounded by all banks, all treasuries, sub-treasuries, issue offices of Reserve Bank of India. What does that impounding mean? Impounding means seizing. You need to seize counterfeit notes. Yeah, taking the legal custody of the notes. This is the benefit of having experienced candidates in your group. Okay. So no credit to customer's account to be given for counterfeit notes if any detected. So as you know, if somebody comes with a counterfeit note, you don't need to pay them, you have to seize it. The counterfeit notes should be returned to the tenderer or destroyed by the bank. Notes determined as counterfeit shall be stamped as counterfeit note and impounded in the prescribed format, and an acknowledgement receipt should be given to the customer. This is the process of seizing these counterfeit notes. On detection of counterfeit notes up to 4 pieces in a single transaction, a consolidated report should be sent to the nodal bank officer, should be sent by the nodal bank officer to the police authorities at the end of the month. So if there is detection of 4 pieces, up to 4 pieces of fake notes, then you have to prepare a consolidated note, and that should be given to the police officials at the end of the month. But if the number is 5 or more than that, then it should be immediately given to the appropriate authorities. Okay, so banks should also monitor the pattern and trends of these transactions, and they have to report if any suspicious transactions found. There are master circular regarding lead bank scheme. I have recently made a video on lead bank scheme. This is very important. Lead bank scheme was formed by DR Gadgil committee, that is the Gadgil study group. In the year 1969 it was implemented. Bank having a relatively large network in a particular district is entrusted with this job of lead bank. So as of now, State Bank of India leads maximum number of districts in terms of lead bank scheme, and the number is around 270. Okay, the lead bank acts as a leader for coordinating this rural credit. Lead bank will work as a leader and coordinate how rural economy will prosper and how the credit flow to rural economy, rural artisans, rural people will be provided, and they will actively engage in the activities that is included in priority sector. This is lead bank scheme, and under the lead bank scheme there are many committees, many forums. They are, one of them is block level bankers committee, and is a forum achieving coordination between credit institutions. You can get it through in PDF. I don't feel it important to describe it to you. And this DCC is important, district consultative committee, which is headed by this district collector. Okay, is chairman of that. And under the lead bank scheme, one lead district manager is appointed by this lead bank. The main job role is to convey these meetings of block level bankers committee meeting, and he will report to the LDO of Reserve Bank of India. Now he will work with LDO. LDO is the lead district officer appointed by Reserve Bank of India. Okay. This SLBC, State Level Bankers Committee, are formed in all the states for inter-institutional coordination and joint implementation of programs and policies by state financial institutions. SLBC is a bit important. MCQs come out of this. Okay, what are the responsibilities of SLBC? And the main responsibility is arranging the meetings that has been assigned to various commercial banks, and it should be held once in a quarter, positively once in a quarter. Okay. Okay, master circular on exchange of notes and coins. All branches of banks are mandated to provide the following services so that customers don't complain to Reserve Bank of India regarding the deficiencies in the service: issuing fresh and good quality notes to the customers, exchange of soiled, mutilated and defective notes. As a banker, you cannot deny to your customers that you will not exchange soiled, mutilated and defective notes, and you cannot deny accepting coins. And as I said you, what is the amount up to which coins are used as legal tender? If you use 50 paisa coin, then the legal tender is up to rupees 10. If somebody giving you coin up to rupees 50 paisa coin up to rupees 10, you have to accept it. If somebody giving you coins, other coins up to rupees 1000, you have to accept it. And in banks, you are advised to keep this 1-2 rupees coin in a sachets which carries 100 up to 100 coins. Okay. None of the banks branches should refuse to accept small denomination notes. You as a banker cannot deny accepting small denomination notes. Okay. So a soiled, what is the definition of soiled, mutilated notes? A soiled note means a note which has become dirty due to normal wear and tear, and also includes a two pieces note pasted together wherein both the pieces presented belong to the same note and form the entire note with no essential feature missing. The soiled note is something which has gone old in normal course of time, in normal usage, and up to if it is tore, then up to two pieces, maximum of two pieces will be considered as soiled note, and it should be pasted. People come, they use cello paste on that soiled note. So on exchange of that soiled note, you will be paid full amount. If the note is divided into two parts and a paste is attached to it, a gum is attached to it, you have to accept it. Okay, you have to exchange it. A mutilated note is a note of which a portion is missing or which is composed of more than two pieces, and there is a regulation in which is called Note Refund Rules 2009. You have to remember all that terms. NRR, Note Refund Rules 2009, last amended in 2018. So as per that rule, you have to pay. Okay, if there is a certain percentage of percentage required of that note, if they are new Mahatma Gandhi series, if 41% of the net of that note is available with you, even if that has been torn into many pieces, you have to pay the full amount to the customer. Okay. So notes which have turned extremely brittle or are badly burnt, charred or inseparably stuck up together, therefore that cannot withstand normal handling, shall not be accepted by the bank of branches or for exchange. So all these notes that cannot be recognized cannot be refunded with. Okay. So notes with slogans, political, religious messages, if banks receive such coins or notes, they should not reissue it. Because why? Because there is a clean note policy, and as per clean note policy, it is mandated that no notes should be circulated without any message on it. As There is another circular which says about penalty for deficiency in customer service. There are some regulations regarding the penalty if you fail or mutilated notes are detected inside bank premises. Then the penalty is up to rupees 50 per piece, irrespective of the denomination. Whatever the note may be, you will be fined with a rupees 50. Non-compliance with operational guidelines by currency chests will attract a penalty up to rupees 5,000 for each irregularity. And if violation in terms of agreements with RBI and non-issue of coins over the counter to any member of public despite having stock with you, and refusal by any bank branch to exchange soiled notes, and refusal by any currency chest branch, the fine will be rupees 10,000. And if there are repetition for 5 times, then the penalty will be rupees 5 lakhs. Okay, these are the normal penalty in terms of deficiencies in customer services. Okay, so from 1st of July, there is also a change in MSMED Act 2006. As per that act, investment in plant and machinery was treated to classify the MSMEs, but now they will use both that criteria, investment and turnover, to classify micro, small and medium enterprises. The chart is given here. For micro enterprises, the investment should be 1 crore and there is no classification of service and manufacturing sector. Earlier, they were differentiating it through in service sector and in manufacturing sector. Manufacturer sector was having higher turnover, higher investment, requiring higher investment, where service sector was requiring lower investment. But in this new law, they have taken uniformly, and investment up to 1 crore in plant and machinery or turnover up to rupees 5 crore is treated as micro enterprise. For small, it is 10 crores, 1 crore to 10 crores, and for medium, it is 10 to 50 crores. And so the turnover criteria, you have to look into the chart, you have to understand it. It is 1, 10, 50, and turnover is 5, 50, 250. Okay. And to calculate that investment in plant and machinery, you have to look into the last year's IT return. You have to use that tool, last year's IT return. And to calculate the turnover, you should also refer to the Income Tax Act and the Central Goods and Service Tax Act. Okay, so this is the new definition of MSME. I think most you all be knowing it, but for your refreshment, you can check it again. This has been simplified: 1, 10, 50, 5, 50, 250. Okay, or the PDF will be given to you, not an issue. You will be getting it. There are some other circulars also. Now onwards, this venture capital fund companies will be known as alternative investment fund companies. Okay, this could be MCQ. Venture capital companies are no longer known as venture capital fund company. They are now will be treated as alternative investment fund companies, AIF. They are now called AIF, and it is done as per 45 NC, Reserve Bank of India Act, section 45 subsection NC, RBI Act 1934. Okay, and there is also a update regarding this RBI extending the timeline for finalization of balance sheet and audit report and for NBFCs, and that period is extended for up to 3 months. They came due to this coronavirus outbreak. And there is also launch of this fair practice code for asset reconstruction company. So what is a asset reconstruction company? We'll discuss it in last about asset reconstruction company. Can you say under which act this asset reconstruction company is floated in India? Can anybody tell? Though this is in the slide, but you should be knowing it. It is as per this SARFAESI Act 2002. What is asset reconstruction company? It is a specialized financial institution that buys the NPAs or bad asset from banks and financial institutions so that the latter can clean up their balance assets. Or in other words, ARCs are the business of buying bad loans from banks. Can you tell what is the term used for ARCs? There is a beautiful term and many conversation going on in banking by industry professionals regarding that term about ARC. Can anyone tell me what is the other name by which ARCs are nowadays called? There is a big debate going on. Can you tell? Can anyone tell? That is bad bank. Have you come across this term, bad bank? They are in financial newspapers. Bad banks. Asset reconstruction company are called bad banks. Why they called bad banks? Can anyone tell? Because they are going to buy the bad assets. But not essentially the whole of ARC will be called as bad banks. In ARC, normally what happens? ARC buys that portfolio, that NPA portfolio at a discounted rate. This is like SPV. SPV buying a performing portfolio, whereas ARC buys a non-performing portfolio. Okay? The basic difference between SPV and ARC is SPV buys performing portfolio, whereas this ARC buys non-performing portfolios, and they buy at a huge discount. So why they buy non-performing assets? Because they have the expertise to recover in ground level. They will recover that, and whatever profit they will have, they will be getting out of it. So they are called bad banks. They will be buying the bad assets. Okay, not that their behavior is going to be bad. Yeah. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, it is not exactly the other name of the ARC, but ARCs can be called bad banks, but there is a big difference. ARCs are essentially going to buy assets at a very high discounted rate, and bad banks is now under discussion to set up bad banks. A bank or a group of banks, if they decide to set up a bad bank, they will place their own portfolio, and they will replace their own portfolio from the parent company to the bad bank, and the bad bank will deal with all that assets that has gone wrong. Even with SMA 1, SMA 0, they will deal with that. Okay. To maximum extent, you can tell that ARCs are bad banks, but there is a bit difference. ARCs are going to buy NPA portfolios at a very discounted rate, whereas bad banks will be dealing with that portfolio. Whatever recovery they will have, that will be the profit. Okay. Like when you have a portfolio, when you have a NPA portfolio and it is written off inside your bank, you transfer it to the OCA. Okay. You transfer it to a separate account, and whatever you recover from that amount is treated as your profit. So there is a thin line between ARC and a bad bank, but most commonly you will be using the word bad bank for ARCs. Now ARCs are going to be constituted as per SARFAESI Act 2002. It is mandated, and the minimum net worth required for setting up a ARC is 2 crore. It was earlier 2 crore, now it is 100 crore. It was 2 crore in the year 2002, but now it is 100 crore. Okay. So ARCs are going to buy the portfolios at a discounted rate from banks, and they will dealing with the NPA resolution. There is a project called Project Sashakt. It was headed by Sunil Mehta. It was also to deal with that NPA woes of bank. That was by Sunil Mehta. Who is Sunil Mehta? He is a former IBA chairman and chairman to Punjab National Bank, who has headed this committee called SASAK. They have recommended 5-point strategy to deal with NPAs, and some key resolutions are there, and that has been accepted by Government of India. And the resolution says the resolution of bad assets below rupees 50 crore to be dealt within 90 days. Resolution of consortium loans between 5 to 500 crores should be dealt within 180 days, and resolution of loans above 500 crores should be done with asset management company, AMC. Project Sashakt recommended the constitution of AMC. This is also one type of ARC, asset resolution company. Okay, so this is all we have in this session. I think we have gone a bit fast. So any of you having any query regarding all these circulars of RBI of July 2020, you can ask me. We have covered the most important topic of special purpose vehicle. This is a valid question nowadays. Project Sashakt, that asset resolution companies, which is under Surface Act. We will be covering Surface Act in a separate session, like we covered Basel 3, Surface Insolvency Bankruptcy Code. These are important. Negotiable Instrument Act. We are going to deal with all of them. So if somebody want to ask any question regarding these points we have discussed, please go ahead. If some of you unable to understand any of the topics, you can go ahead, or else you will be provided with this PDF. If you have any query, then ask in group. We will be discussing it. I think I have covered almost. Yes, go ahead. ANBC or OBE, whichever is higher, PSL will be calculated in terms of adjusted net bank credit or off balance sheet exposure, whichever is higher. If off balance sheet exposure is higher for that bank, yeah. No, it is ANBC, adjusted net bank credit. Whatever net bank credit bank has done credit, total credit bank has extended, net credit bank has extended to all the corporates, all the individual borrowers, all the sectors, that will be called as ANBC, and 40% out of that should be to the priority sector. Okay. We will be covering priority sector lending in one session, because priority sector lending is a very important in terms of banking inside India. Banking inside India is incomplete without priority sector lending. It is treated as a double pressure. I have already told you it is double pressure, and Basel 3 norms add extra cheese to it. Okay. Banks already dealing. Why there is a delay in implementation of Basel 3 in India? Because banks in India deal with double pressure. That is this reserve ratios, CRR, SLR, and this priority sector lending targets. Because priority sector lending is not that much profitable that in ordinary retail loans, because they deal with discounted rates, and the rate of being NPA in a priority sector lending is higher, hence the profit is less. Okay, so any queries? Anyone of you want to ask anything else? Let's end the session. I will be providing you the PDF. Look into it. It will not take more than 10 to 15 minutes. Look into the minute details of all that is mentioned in circular. I have tried to gist out everything that is there in July 2020 circular. So you need not refer any circular of July 2020, and this PDF will serve all that. Whatever terms I found out from that circulars, I have cleared them. So once this August month is over, by August 1st or 2nd, we will be clearing all that is there in RBI circulars. Okay. So thank you and good night. Yeah. Good night. Anyone asking anything? Someone I was asking a question. Yeah. Okay. Okay. See, anyone can apply because there is not mentioned that you need to work in a particular profile. But how he represent himself in the interviews matters. We will be discussing that one by one. I will be taking a conversation before the interview one by one. How you have to represent. He has worked in collections, but that doesn't mean that he need to show that he have solely worked in the in collections department. That's why we are having all this course, because we are also covering liabilities part. He have to say him that he have also worked closely with this liabilities people. Okay. Without, see, collection is a matter of concern for State Bank of India. They want their liabilities people to talk about collection, to do collections, but the core thing that they will be doing is liabilities. So if he answers to the queries, to the questions that has been put under liabilities, sorry, then yes, put under liabilities and advance section, then he is through, not an issue. Okay. So your representation matter, because here they have not specified that you should be working in advance or you should be working in SME, you should be working in branch banking. They have not mentioned it. You have to tell that I have worked very closely with all these people. I have a broader idea about all this, though I have not worked directly in liabilities, or I have worked for a brief period of time. They are not going to see whether you have really worked or not. Okay. Yes. See, short list, yes, that will be a weightage when you will be appearing the interview. Shortlisting is not going to happen as far as my knowledge is concerned. Okay, HR is waiting to see how many number of candidates have appeared. If it is beyond 30,000, then there will be no shortlisting. There will be written, those who will be qualifying the written test, it will be qualifying in nature. Those who will qualify in written test will go to the interview. And yes, in interview, your experience, your years of experience, your depth of the subject matter will be counted. Okay. Shortlisting is not most probably is not going to happen. Shortlisting will be yes. No. If written exams, all this math and quant and reasoning will play a role, but they will all be qualifying in nature. They will be focusing more on this banking awareness part. If it will be of 150 marks, what I was guessing, it will be 150 to 200. Then 75 or 100 mark will be from banking awareness. Rest 30 will be given to all this English and all that. Okay. Yeah. Thank you all. If you have any query, you can ask me directly. Okay. Good night all.